It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, brought to you by Fast Break Sports, the largest selection of cards and card supplies in Southwest Missouri. Now here's your host, Scott Puryear.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Puryear. As always, appreciate you tuning in. Gonna have a little fun today talking with Scott Bales, the former big leaguer, Springfield Parkview graduate, former Missouri State Bear back when they were the SMS Bears, spent 9 seasons in the major leagues. We're going to kind of dive into everything you wanted to know from a major leaguer and then some. So we'll talk to Scott as well as about the Springfield Cardinals and his role now with the organization. We start off each week with our What's on Tap segment, where we kind of give you a preview of things to watch this week in the area sports scene. And, of course, it starts with the Springfield Cardinals. They opened up over the weekend 3 straight wins down in Arkansas to start the year. First time in 20 years they've started 3-0. They're home all this week, starting Tuesday night through Sunday. The Wichita team is in town. Opening night, the home opener is Tuesday night. Get over and check out Springfield Cardinals baseball the rest of the week there. Missouri State baseball Bears, they have a non-conference date this week before they hit the road for Valley play at, take that back. Illinois Chicago is in town at Hammons Field this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's the old doubleheader games over at Hammons Field. The Bears will play 11 a.m. each day with the Cardinals home at night. Missouri State is 3-6 in Valley play. Kind of time for them to kind of get things rolling as they head toward Valley tournament time in May. Mizzou is here next Tuesday night. That's always a fun rivalry matchup between the Bears and the Tigers there. Drury baseball, they're 15-5 in Great Lakes Valley Conference play. They're also home this weekend. They've won 10 of the last 12 in league play, and they've got Illinois Springfield in town. In town now for Drury is Mark Worley Field at Metter Park. A chance to catch the rejuvenated and renovated facility over there, Metter Park now with the artificial turf, great lighting. Get out and check out Drury baseball this weekend as well. Special guest this week on Around the Ozarks Sports Scene is the local baseball legend, former Parkview great, Missouri State Bear, SMS Bear back in the day. We welcome to the show Scott Bales. Scott, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for asking me, Scotty.
Absolutely. You and I go back to our days in the Bears Den having lunch as students at Missouri State, which was good old SMS back then. So, I mean, I think we've got a 40-year history in the books here.
It started with you assuming that baseball players at SMS in the early 1980s were getting all kind of special treatment.
Oh, yeah.
We got nothing.
We got nothing. Well, I mean, we ate in the Bears Den, and we called it Guys Lunch. I think you guys were in the process of starting Econ Moving and Packing, right?
That's good. That's good recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. We rented one of Johnny Morris's properties on Campbell. Somehow at the age of 19, we're leasing Ryder rental trucks.
Whose idea was
illegally?
Yeah. We
weren't 21. We didn't have a CDL, and we were moving people all over the country.
Wow.
Weird.
And that was you and Scott Silkwood,
yeah,
Rob Young?
Yeah, we broke some stuff of people's, and we would pay the football players, I think at the time, $5 an hour, cash.
Yeah. And for them, it was spending money, beer money.
Spending money. There was no NIL money for the SMS Bears in 1980.
Wow. No NIL. Yeah, exactly. So, want to bring in and talk. I've always wanted to just sit down, and even though we've known each other 40 years, there's things I probably have never asked you. Some of them I have, but just kind of get 10 questions that I want to ask with Scott Bales. But before we get to that, big day in Springfield today. We're taping this on Tuesday. It's the home opener for the Springfield Cardinals, the AA team of the St. Louis Cardinals. You're in your second year with the team now in your current capacity, which I guess is what, vice president of being loved in baseball, or what is you're an ambassador,
I have a title.
You have a title. What is that?
I have a title.
Yeah. Do you know what it is?
Springfield Sports Ambassador.
Springfield Sports Ambassador.
What does that mean? Yeah. Nobody knows.
Yeah, your job description, has it been written
I
yet?
like it to be vague, so I cannot be held accountable.
So when they go back and say, well, you weren't doing this, I
wasn't
know what I was supposed to do. You didn't tell me. So, but no, you have fun with it. Of course, you get to be around the ballpark, be around players, be around fans. You still get to do TV games with Ned. How long has that been going on?
This will be season 20.
And you've done it
We've
since
done them
from the
every
get-go.
year,
Wow.
me and Ned.
Wow, that's amazing. And first telecasts are what, Saturday, Sunday?
What's amazing is that he's still alive.
Yes, yeah.
That's the amazing part of that.
And I've got a couple Ned questions in my list here, too, we'll get to. But that did not realize from day one you two have done the games. Anybody else popped in
We've had
there?
some guys sit in. Jerry Lumpy had done a couple early. Josh Kinney, if I'm out of town the last couple of years, has sat in with Ned. Andrew Buckbinder, the voice of the Cardinals, the old voice of the Cardinals. We have a new guy this year,
Yeah, I saw
Alex
that.
Jensen. Great voice, and he debuted just 3 days ago in Little Rock.
Yeah, Springfield off to a good start, 3-0 down in Little Rock.
First time ever.
First time they've started 3-0.
And
Wow.
and 3-0 with great pitching. And the exciting guy for me to watch is that guy that pitched opening day,
Is it
Tink
Hintz?
Hintz.
Yeah.
He's an Arkansas kid, very young, and he came to AA last year in his first year as a signee, and kind of got knocked around a little bit. So you wonder how a kid bounces back.
Yeah.
Do you send him back to A ball, build up? No, he came out and he went 5 innings, no hit opening day, and looked like the guy they expected.
And that would be, let's see, if he threw Friday, he's probably on a Thursday of this week?
Yeah, sometimes early in the year the teams do weird
go longer.
things.
Yeah.
They'll go 6 days with the day off, and so who knows? But
Cooler
he'll pitch this
weather.
homestand.
Yeah.
Come out and see him.
So Wichita's in town. Again, they're here all week, Tuesday through Sunday over at Hammons Field. Season 20, is that correct?
Season 20.
Season 20. And of course, Scott Bales played 9 seasons in the major leagues, fourth-round pick of the Pirates in the 82 draft. Got drafted by the Rangers right before that, didn't you? Turn that down?
Yeah, they were all kind of weird drafts.
Yeah.
And that 4th round is very deceiving. That was kind of in a winter supplemental draft where there are only 5 rounds.
Okay.
That's gone away. They don't do it anymore. So it's equivalent, I tell everyone, of being a 40th round draft pick in June.
And why'd you turn the Rangers down the first time?
Well, I was asking for $2,000 signing bonus, and they only offered $1,000.
Really?
So I held out.
Then I'm out of here.
Yeah, if you can't get to my number,
I'm going back to Guy's Lunch.
I'm walking.
And Econ Moving and Packing is just around the corner,
Yeah,
right?
it was-
Did you make more with Econ than you would have in baseball that
Oh
year?
yeah,
Did you?
baseball was $600 a month for 4 months,
Wow.
$2,400 for the year. So yeah, we were doing a lot of things with cash, and it was doing pretty well.
Do you look back now and are you kind of amazed that you were able to get 9 years out of Major League Baseball? Because, I mean, you and we'll get into this, but you're one of the great stories of a guy that actually semi-retired and then came back about 3 years later. So, I mean,
Yeah.
And what is the magic number to get all the benefits? Is it 9?
You get a pension now. If you play 1 year, you get a pension. If you
Yeah.
play 1 month, you get a prorated pension. 10 years is the maximum pension.
Okay.
So I get a 91% of the
Yeah.
max. But I will tell you this, on the first of every month, when I look at a statement,
Yeah.
every month I go, I don't know why they're sending me this money.
You feel like Bobby Bonilla, don't you?
Well, not quite.
Not quite.
He was my teammate and roommate.
He should have
with
been
the-
your
with the
negotiator,
Pirates.
apparently, right?
Gosh, he's going to get paid for a long
Does
time.
he still get $1 million a year until like 2030 or something like that?
He gets $1.2 million from the Mets.
Yeah.
And what people don't know, we had a AA reunion last year. He goes, people forget that that worked out so well when he signed a late contract with the Orioles.
Uh-huh.
He gets $500,000 a year from them for 15 more years. Bobby weighs about 300 pounds. He's living a good life.
That's amazing. And so we'll get into some of that stuff about the pro career. I just wanted to ask you some things. You played with the Bears back with a very young Keith Gutton. And here's Gutton wrapping up season 42, his final year, retiring. You're one of the few people in the area still that probably can recollect what Keith Gutton was like in like 1982. Tell us about a young Gutton.
He had an afro, which was funny.
Yeah.
He was very low skilled as a player.
Uh-huh.
hitting, fielding, throwing. He was below average. But somehow, even in college, and he was a senior when I was a freshman, he kind of understood the game. He kind of looked at it differently than the rest of the guys. You know, we were all just, do we have enough money to buy a six-pack on a weekend?
Yeah.
And he was like breaking down games and asking questions. So you knew he had a different view of the game than the rest of us.
This was when Bill Rowe was the head coach.
Bill Rowe was the head coach.
Yeah.
But even that, Bill was already working his way into becoming the athletic director. Mm-hmm. He would show up at Metter Park in a uniform on a Friday for a game, and it would be the first time we had seen him all week.
So did you have Gutton for a coach at all?
Keith ran the practices as a player.
As a player?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Rowe would show up and stand at third on the weekends, and it's worked out well. You know, the fact they've had two coaches in, like 200 years?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Abner Doubleday was, said, you guys start this program. His temperament back then, what was it like?
A lot more. He would fight someone.
Really?
Yeah, and we tell him all the time, you've gotten so soft.
Yeah.
You know, he lets guys have the long hair now, grow beards, and he goes, yeah. And he fought everything. I mean, he wanted to be old school Keith Gutton, and players respected it. And the Bears had when they went to the Missouri Valley Conference, there were rules, and you followed them or you didn't play. And now he's kind of softened, and you know.
Did you ever imagine it'd be a 42-year career for that guy at one place? I mean, you look at what he's done, and I'll tell you, I was down in Fayetteville over the weekend, and we went to a Razorbacks game on Saturday. Crazy environment. Number one team in the country. There were 5,000 people in the hog pen alone in the GA section where they allow you to bring in food and beverage. It's pretty crazy.
Mostly
beverage out there. But got to talk to, the Wilmsmeyer parents, great people. And, of course, Ty's the starting center fielder for the Hogs. And I tend to forget the barriers that Keith has with a roster cap, where, he's done this with a cap of 32 a year or around 30, where Arkansas has got 40, and that's 8 more pitchers that you can develop and protect against injury, because Missouri State has to align with the female to male ratio and with Title IX and everything else. People don't realize it. I mean, and Keith could have gone to somewhere, a Power 5 school or something like that, and not fought any of that.
Right. He could have done that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and he just chose to stay in Springfield, Missouri, which we're all lucky that he did.
How much Major League Baseball do you watch now? You watch the big Cardinals just because of the...
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little. I hate to say this out loud, but it might be my least favorite sport to watch on TV.
Because it's slow or what?
It's slow. It's, there's not a lot of action. Yeah. It's either a walk or strikeout. There's just not a lot of action, and I just don't watch it much. I love watching college basketball. I love watching hockey. That I don't even know the rules, but it's fun to watch.
Football falls.
College football, SEC football. But baseball is down there on the list for me. I know they're doing things to try and make it faster and more action, but until these guys that all throw 98 miles an hour learn how to throw more than 50% strikes, I think it's going to be kind of slow.
And I would think one of the appeals when you do watch like the Cardinals is seeing, kind of like we do as fans, the Ivan Herrera's and the Victor Scotts, and in the Newt Bar, I guess he's on rehab this week.
He'll be here tonight, leading off.
And seeing those guys that you called the games here and watching them continue to develop up there.
Yeah, and that's what's fun for me, watching the guys here. Some struggle at the AA level is kind of a point in the minor league system where, there's 2 or 3 rookie ball teams, 2 or 3 A-ball teams, and all of a sudden that funnel gets really narrow, and there's only one AA team, one AAA, one big league. So, it kind of separates who's going to get a chance at the big league level.
Is it harder to succeed at AA than it is AAA in some cases because of the amount of high-level prospects? Some of them will jump from AA to the majors. Not many anymore, but
right.
I've always heard that. The AAA has got a lot of guys that maybe just don't have it to get to that next level.
Yeah, a lot of AAA guys are long-term AAA guys.
They call 4A guys.
They fill out the roster in AAA, but they're most likely never going to play in the big leagues. And I was probably in that list of guys that should have never played in the big leagues too, but I get traded from the Pirates to the Indians. You know, Pirates were pretty good back in the Manny Sanguillen age, and
Willie Stargell
and Dave Parker. They were, playing in World Series.
We Are Family, Omar Moreno.
Right. Yeah. A lot of drugs involved. But
whistleblowing by the wives.
But they were really good. I get traded to the Indians, who were terrible, and guys were getting chances. You know, if you got people out in the minor leagues, they're going to give you, it's like McDonald's. Let's hire 20 people and see if one sticks. And I went from AA to the big leagues after 2 full years in AA, not a lot of success. But I threw strikes, and Cleveland gave me a chance to go to winter ball. I pitched well. I went to big league camp, first time ever, made the team. And that stuff doesn't happen very often, especially nowadays because of all the statistics. You got to check all the boxes.
And salaries and bonuses and years of service, contract, things like that.
But back then it was, if you were getting guys out, they'd give you a chance.
Yeah.
And I kind of got to the big leagues and pitched better my first couple of years there than I ever did in the minor leagues, even though, according to you, my WAR, which you had to explain to me what that was.
Wins above replacement. Yeah, minus .06.
And I guess that should be a plus.
You should be about 0, or above. But there are a lot of guys that are minus .2 and things like that. So all it means is it says wins above replacement of what a AAA player would add in the same role. It's not the most uplifting definition of a WAR.
No.
But you know what? You got paid, and you got 9 seasons. And
got paid. Minimum salary was $60K.
Yeah. And
I was raking in $60,000.
Yeah. You weren't going to do that in econ, moving, and packing.
No.
Do you ever now wake up and want to thank your parents for making you left-hander? Because if you're a right-hander, would it have been different?
I would have never played in college, probably.
Because there weren't a lot of
left-handed mattered, and it still matters. Mm-hmm. I think out of 13 pitchers this year, the Cardinals have 3. Odds are good because they want lefties.
And if you're get that baby throwing left-handed, right? Develop that left arm.
They got a chance.
Yeah. Some of the things I wanted to ask you. So, we see Shane Bieber go down. Spencer Strider goes down. The Braves, the dreaded elbow soreness. A lot of these guys now are coming out and trying to blame the pitch clocks. Why do you see all these arm injuries happening? Garrett Cole's out for 2 months.
Garrett Cole's out.
Yeah, what's going on in your mind?
I don't think it has anything to do with the pitch clock. 90% of guys pitched inside of that pitch clock anyway. The 10% of guys that were horribly slow, their teams hate them. They don't want to play defense behind them. That's something they should have changed, or the organization should have pushed anyway. I think it's the everything, the max effort, nothing matters but velocity. And I think that's it. I think guys throw less than we used to. I think we worked out less and threw more. It's sport specific.
Yeah.
If you're going to bend over all day to finish concrete, you get strong that way, bending over. This works specific, and now they do everything but pitch.
Yeah.
I watch them work out, train, lift weights, do yoga. They do all this stuff, but they severely limit how much they play catch, how much they play long toss, how much they throw off a mound and count pitches. And Nolan Ryan would have not thrived under today's training, and he threw every day.
I saw a quote here in the last couple of weeks that I thought was one of the best of all time is, you can't pull fat. They're talking about these guys that didn't
Lynn.
Didn't lift weights, didn't, the guys are getting like Byron Buxton can't walk on a field without getting hurt.
Right.
But he's just ripped.
But Lance Lynn, who looks like a 1980s starting pitcher, I think he's pitched more innings than anyone over the last decade.
Yeah. And doesn't look like he's done a lot of cardio.
No ab work.
There's no
He's on the same ab program as we are.
Yes, he has abs. They're just covered in there, yeah. So a couple other things. So in a benches clearing brawl situation, do any of those guys really want to fight?
Rare.
Rare?
It's all for show. A lot of yelling. A lot of grabbing hold of a guy on the other team that is not going to swing or hit you. You pick out a buddy from the other team and act like you're holding him back. I think I saw one fight where there were multiple people swinging, and that was against the Royals.
Anybody ever swing at you?
Fred McGriff charged the mound with his bat in his hand.
At you?
Yeah, and I'm just yelling. And I knew Fred. We were rookies the same year, and I hit him in the helmet.
It couldn't hurt him.
I hit him in the helmet on a 3-0 pitch.
Yeah.
Like my foot just slipped, high and in. He ducked, it bounced off. He starts walking with his bat up. And I'm like, Fred, you don't need the bat for one thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the catcher hit him from
catcher?
Andy Allenson.
Thank God for him, right?
And he's a good-sized guy for a catcher. He tackled him from behind. I kind of jumped on the pile, grabbed a hold of the bat.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of people jumped on, and he goes, I don't know what I was doing. I was just a reaction, but those things are all show.
He's one example probably of the answer that I'm going to ask you this, but who was the one guy that you knew to absolutely, I want no part of him, I'm staying away from him when you were in the bigs?
In a fight?
In a fight, yeah.
Dave Winfield.
Yeah.
The most intimidating guy at the plate I ever faced. He's 6'6". And I played with him.
Was it kind of like, oh, God, don't hit him? Is that what you thought?
Don't hit him. Keep away. If he gets a home run or a hit away, at least he won't kill me by hitting a line drive. He looked so big. His bat looked like he was swinging a 24-inch bat because he was such a big man. Scared to death of him. And he loved to. And later when I played with him with the Angels, he said, oh, that was all intentional. With 2 strikes sometimes, if he got fooled, he would throw the bat at the pitcher. And it would come right at your shins, bouncing. You didn't know to duck, jump. And he goes, if I knew I'd been fooled, I'd just launch the bat at the pitcher. Fully intentional.
Wow. And you played with, I think you did, with one of the guys that I would think would be on that scary list. Wasn't Albert Bell? Was he a teammate?
Yep, in Cleveland.
Yeah. Joey, Albert Bell, whatever he went by at the time. Was he nuts? He
was not nuts. He was quiet and he was intelligent. His parents were professors at LSU, I think, or in education on team flights when we were all being idiots. He was doing the New York Times crossword puzzles.
Wow.
Different than he was seen, because what he wasn't good at was making an out.
Yeah.
He'd lose his mind. Yeah. One at bat. And we're like, Joey, it's one at bat. You're going to have 600 this year. You can't demolish the bathroom in the clubhouse every time you make an out. So that was his only problem. And, I remember sitting in the bullpen the one time when a fan was heckling him about some trouble at LSU. And he walked over about the 4th inning and looked above our dugout, and we're just watching him. He takes the ball and fires it and hits this guy right in the chest.
Were you thinking the whole time that fan was heckling you, you better stop?
You should. Yeah. We told the guy, you should stop.
Not that guy. You don't want to mess with that one.
And the beauty of the 19th, there's no cell phones, there's no video.
Yeah.
The guy got crunched right in the chest with a heater from 30 feet, and the ushers just kind of stood there and laughed at him.
There's been so many movies made about baseball, and the early ones especially had baseball groupies were prominent. It may be guy code that you can't talk about it now, but was that a thing during your career? I mean, were there groupies in every city?
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Is it still a thing, you think?
I've heard.
Is it a thing in Springfield at AA?
No, they don't go out. They don't go downtown. They don't go to bars. They sit on their cell phone and look at these apps where people will just show up. And I don't think they're paying for it.
How dangerous would that have been back in the 80s and 90s?
Dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, it was a thing. And you could really tell it when if you played the Dodgers or if you played the Yankees, their groupies traveled well.
Really?
Yeah, hundreds. The hotel would be packed with groupies.
Yeah.
Just hoping to run into a player. But now I think the players stay in the room, get on Tinder, meet someone. I guess you can do in this 30-minute area, and people come and visit.
You know nothing about this, of course.
I know nothing. Yes. I don't know anything. I just hear what players, but they don't go out as a team much anymore.
Yeah.
And that's been a change. Back in the day when the Cardinals started here, I remember the teams 15, 20 years ago, they went to dinner together. They'd go hang out at Ebbets Field together. They'd go downtown and go out at night. And that doesn't happen anymore. It's more business-like now.
Along those lines, best and worst cities to visit during your playing career?
My favorite city is Boston.
Why?
Just the closeness of downtown Boston, rows of houses, and you can go down and go into like Cheers, like bars and restaurants. And I just liked the vibe, and the Boston Harbor was, within walking distance. I just liked everything about it. The food and the attitude of the people is harsh, and I liked their fans who were merciless on, like, you're warming up in the bullpen, you can get hit with a hot dog with mustard right in your head.
You didn't have any R's in your name, so you were just still Scott Bales.
Yeah, not...
Hey, Balesy, right?
Yeah. So Boston, I love going there every year, 2 or 3 visits. Place I didn't like to go, I went to Tampa Bay once. Mm-hmm. Brutal. That stadium, I hated it. I hated going to Minnesota. I didn't mind Minnesota as a town, but we played in the old, baggy white blimp field. It was terrible. Routine fly balls to shortstop would turn into a double. They turned on this heating vent behind home plate. When you'd go out to warm up and pitch, all of a sudden you'd hear this 10-foot circle fan behind home plate start blowing out. And they said it was just random heating and cooling, but it was every time you walked out and picked up the ball, here comes the fan blowing in your face, which blew balls out of that park. And they had Puckett and Herbeck and Gaetti, and they won the World Series a couple times while I was playing, and they were tough in that place. But I hated that stadium. You
were a notorious juicer, obviously, by your physical build back in the 80s and 90s. But no, you played in an era where Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, all these guys were in their heyday. I'm sure you've been asked about it several times. Was it pretty prevalent back then?
Yeah.
Did everybody know it?
I mean, all the players knew it. Yeah. I don't know if the general public knew it. It was... I don't know, even on my teams in Cleveland, it was 50-50.
Did you ever have a problem with it, or did you just think that was part of the game back then?
Some people took amphetamines, some people took steroids, some people drank a lot of coffee. People just did what they thought would give them an edge, and they call it greenies. At one point, they were sitting around the clubhouse in the early 80s and mid-80s, and I hear before that there was cocaine in locker rooms, which I never saw. But I think it's guys just trying to get an edge. And boy, once that steroid thing hit, and you saw, for us, the first guy in Cleveland was Julio Franco.
Yeah.
Who you can't say that it hurt him. He played till he was 50 overseas, but he left spring training once. No, he left the season in September. Next spring training in Tucson, Arizona, and Julio wasn't a big guy. When he was playing shortstop, he was probably 6 foot, 180. He came to spring training the next year, still 6 foot, 215, and was jacked. And said, yeah, he hired a personal trainer. And then the next year, Tony Bernazard looked like him. Yeah. The next year, a lot of people started looking like him. And
it was all hitters. There was no advantage for a pitcher.
Pitchers took it too.
Did they?
Yeah. Chuck Finley, Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
Some bigger, stronger pitchers. I always thought I had good movement. If I threw a little harder, does it just straighten out my fastball? I just didn't want to risk it. But again, I didn't care that people were doing it, and I think that those guys shouldn't be kicked out of the Hall of Fame because Mickey Mantle probably did some things that weren't legal. Yeah. Pete Rose did some things that weren't legal, but I think your numbers are your numbers, and you can't go around every decade saying, well, these guys can't get in because they might or they did this.
Especially as prevalent as it was. That was their era.
Ricky Henderson, who he got really good at 35.
Yeah.
With the Oakland A's.
How does that happen?
Even the Oakland A's coaches started doing steroids. McKay and the first base coach, they got jacked in the offseason.
Yeah.
And that was Tony La Russa era out there. And don't tell me Tony didn't know what was going on.
Tell me one or two guys that you just own that are probably Hall of Famers or on that level, and then tell me a guy or two that owned you and you just can't figure out how they did.
Yeah, these are simple because any fans that you ever talk to know this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't really know it as a player. You just go out there and hope you get an out. But I have two Hall of Famers that I did stupidly well against. The best was Cal Ripken. He was 1 for 19 career. And at one point he was 0 for 18, and a reporter in Anaheim said, did you realize that Cal Ripken is 0 for 18 against you? That night he got a hit off me.
Yeah.
1 for 19. And, all you think is, I remember some balls that he just squared up, probably hit it right at the shortstop or something. But I got him out. He was my first big league strikeout, too. So him and George Brett. George hit like 160 against me in a lot of at-bats because he was left-handed.
Yeah.
I faced him as a starter, as a reliever. And everyone would say, how do you get George out? No one can get him out. He hit lefties really well. I said, I don't know. I throw my 85-mile-an-hour sinker. It goes down and in. He hits a ground ball to second every time. He runs hard to first. He runs, cuts back across the mound, running right at me, yelling, "You don't have shit, Bales. You got the weakest crap I've ever seen." And he runs back to the dugout. He did that every time, just like spitting mad that he swung at first pitch again. And later he'd say, "Yeah, it was the most annoying thing. It looked so hittable. I could not take a pitch." And so those two guys, and both great Hall of Fame, all-timer kind of Hall of Famers. But then some guy that was really a crappy big league player, he hit 220 in his career. It would have been 180 if it wasn't for me. His name was Pete Incaviglia.
Yeah, Inky.
Oklahoma guy, Oklahoma State guy.
Texas Ranger.
Straight to the major leagues. Yeah. Best college hitter, supposedly, of all time. He'd strike out 3 times every game in the big leagues and played for 10 years because he'd hit a couple home runs.
Yeah.
I think he had 7 home runs off me and batted .580 in about 40 at-bats.
Wow.
Couldn't get him out. I'd watch Greg Swindell strike him out. I'd watch Ed Vandenberg, who played a year, lefty, strike him out. I'd watch everyone strike him out, and no matter what I threw, he would crush it.
Wow. Biggest fear of something happening during a TV broadcast with Ned? What is your fear that could happen? And give me one good Ned TV story that nobody knows about during your Cardinals telecast.
My biggest fear is a leak in his Depends. That we haven't had that happen yet, but I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest fear. We don't have a cleanup crew up there.
Does he fall? I mean, he would fall asleep during our radio show sometimes. Do you see him kind of nodding off a little bit?
If we go extra innings on a weeknight and he's got, he's up early for his radio show and he's got to do it the next morning.
I didn't sleep.
You see the head start shaking a little bit.
Good Ned story.
Good Ned. We have some stories. Don't really know what I should say on air.
Yeah.
Might ruin his professional credibility. But I guess at 83, who cares?
That's true.
Who's going to fire him?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have you enjoyed your time with him?
Love every night.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get. One of my favorites is, that'll be a deep fly ball to second.
He's having a little trouble picking up the ball off the bat, maybe?
There's a little of that, but he comes in with 60 printed pages of the stats that are in the yearbook. They're online. He goes to KY3, makes some intern print off all the game notes.
10 trees died for his game notes.
For his game prep. So it's just fun.
He's a legend.
And he can recall stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it goes so far back, you don't even know if it's true unless you Google it yourself.
He may just be making it up.
Could be.
Yeah.
He might truly believe it, but we kind of got a little tie. I was in New Jersey right across the river from Philadelphia, and so he's a huge Philly guy.
Oh, yeah.
Being from there, and I grew up as a Phillies and a Flyers fan because we lived there before we moved to Springfield.
In 1988, first of all, I wanted to ask you this. Do you know who the Indians traded to get you? Do you remember?
Jeff Manto.
Johnny LeMaster.
Oh, Johnny LeMaster.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you think he's proud of that now?
Well, his WAR could be a positive number. We don't know. You should pull it up. We should check WAR numbers.
I found this out. Johnny LeMaster once played a game for the Giants with the name Boo on the back of his jersey, because his home fans there basically welcomed him with that every time he came out to the field. So he came out with one that said Boo on the back.
The reason they traded for me, Johnny LeMaster, Cleveland was trying to unload his salary because Julio Franco had taken over as shortstop. And they go, we're not paying a guy $90,000 to be a backup infielder. So they traded him basically for me, which I was the player to be named later.
Wow.
You always wonder, who is that guy?
Yeah.
I was that guy. So that was Johnny LeMaster because Dale Berra broke his ankle for the Pirates. They needed a shortstop.
Yeah.
So they got Johnny. I went to Cleveland. No, I went to Double-A Waterbury and got to Cleveland the next year. And then from when I got traded to the California Angels, I got traded for Jeff. It was a 2-for-1.
Yes, Jeff Manto.
Jeff Manto and Colin Charland, who never threw another pitch after the trade. So I'd say the Angels did better on that trade.
They did. They won. The most amazing Scott Bales stat to me, in 1988, you threw 5 complete games with 2 shutouts. 5 complete games. Nobody even gets a complete game anymore because everybody's
no one gets that in a career.
No. How do you explain that? I mean, was it just they were throwing you out there to die and you were either going to win or die, one of the two?
There were just expectations if you started, and the expectations were 120 pitches, and they didn't have 9 guys in the bullpen; they had 4 or 5. So you couldn't let your bullpen pitch 6 innings every night like they do now. I liked it. They counted pitches. I don't know why they counted them because they didn't really care. If you were getting guys out, you were going to stay out there.
You threw 127 pitches in a 3-0 complete game loss to the Rangers that season in April of 88.
Right April. Out of spring training.
Yeah, in April. It had to be probably 50 out there, and you're out there throwing almost 130 pitches. And did you ever look over and go, guys, no, you just wanted to stay out there, right?
In 87, I pitched opening day in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Opening day, and I went 9 against Baltimore. And I remember that game because I actually won it. There aren't many of those that I recall, but that one I won. And now, it was like Tin Kents the other day, 5 innings, no hit ball, low pitch count. He had like 62 pitches.
And he's out of there.
Out.
Yeah.
Was the plan. That was the pitch number. It doesn't matter.
I think the biggest travesty in your career when I saw this, 14 years of professional baseball, you got a grand total of 3 at-bats and none in the major leagues.
All in the minor league.
Yeah. I mean, was that a travesty that
All
you didn't get to go to the plate at any point in your major league
career?
No.
It was best for everyone not to witness that. I didn't want any record. I can't believe it shows up.
You struck out all 3 times, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you get
one was
foul
against,
one off?
I fouled a couple off against Atlee Hammaker.
Yeah.
A lefty on lefty. I thought I had him. I had 2 foul balls. The other 2 times where I just kind of stood there and it felt like someone was throwing 150.
I could do this all day because I got all kinds of stuff, and I'm having fun, so we're going to go a little bit longer here. But, you retired in January of 95 and then signed with the Rangers about a year and a half later, back on a major league field in 97. First major league appearance in 4 seasons came in August that year. Refresh me again. Did you think you were done? I know you went to the Special Olympics and worked for which organization?
It was Special Olympics and champion athletes of the Ozarks. With
in your mind, were you done? And were you the inspiration for the actual movie, The Rookie? Should that have been about you?
I was not the inspiration. What happened there was I had played 7 years, didn't re-sign with the Angels, had a little bit of money in the bank, was missing Allie and Tara. My 2 oldest daughters were at the age they were playing soccer and basketball. Paige is the same age.
Yeah.
And I hated missing that stuff. And I remember on a late bus from the airport in Anaheim one night, Bert was talking. He goes, I wish if we would have got in yesterday, I could have watched my son pitch. I go, where's he? He's in college at like Cal State Fullerton or something. I've never seen him pitch.
Wow.
And I remember that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Bert's a Hall of Famer, had a 20-year career. Became a broadcaster, but he missed out on everything. And I thought, I don't want that. And so I went home and I coached spirit soccer for my daughters, and we started Springfield Soccer Club, and I went to every practice and game, and then Brad Beatty and Bruce Long and Bubba Carlson talked me into going to Arizona for an over 30 baseball tournament. I said, I'm not going out with a bunch of old guys. But I went. Dan O'Brien Jr., who I had met in Cleveland, he came to a game because we were going out to dinner. And after the game, he goes, man, you're throwing harder now than you ever did in the major leagues. I go, yeah, whatever. Because I hadn't played catch in 4 years. I hadn't played catch in 4 years.
Wow.
Until that day. And I go, yeah, that's funny. That's pretty funny. And a few beers later, he goes, well, I'm with the Rangers now. We have 1 lefty going to Major League camp in February. Would you go? I said, no chance. Are you kidding me?
How old were you then?
I was 37.
Wow.
And took his card, said we had dinner, went home. And about a month later, when I was finally taking stuff out of my backpack, at dinner, I go, hey, Joanne, remember Dan O'Brien Jr., which Dan O'Brien Sr. was our GM in Cleveland. This was their son, about my age. Well, he's now the GM in Texas. I go, he mentioned, going to spring training. I said, yeah, that's the craziest thing. And Allie and Tara were like, Dad, you got to do it. Do it. Because they didn't remember 4 years earlier when they were 2, 3, 4, 5. But now they're 10 and 12, and they think that could be cool. And I remember that night, all night, thinking, you can't do that. That's the stupidest idea ever. Next morning, I called him and said, what are you thinking, or were you drunk when you asked me? He goes, no, we still have 1 lefty going to camp. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, how about this? Send me, Joanne, and the girls to Puerto Rico for a month, playing the Winter League, which I'd been in before, comfortable down there, knew my way around. I said, if I embarrass myself, the Rangers don't know. No one in Springfield knows. I don't embarrass you, me, anyone. And if it goes well, we'll talk. I go down there for a month. I pitch as well as I ever did in winter ball and go to big league camp. And I'm in Texas by May or June, I think.
How were you received by those guys in the big league clubhouse when you're back at 37 or 38?
Great. Everyone was great.
So it really was the rookie. I mean,
It
Dennis
was great.
Quaid, without Dennis Quaid, right?
Yeah, I never wore dress shoes on a wet highway with a sign flashing and threw 98 miles an hour.
What'd you peak out at with your fastball?
When I got back to Texas, I got to 90, 92.
Uh-huh.
All my years in Cleveland, California, I sat right between 85 and 87.
When was the last time you threw a baseball?
October in the over 60 tournament in Arizona.
They have an over 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30, 40, 50, 60, and 70.
So you've got a lot of life left.
Yeah, we got a lot of life.
So if we put you out on the mound today, this afternoon, we brought out Dan Ryder, Scott Smolzinski, Brad Beatty. Are you going 3 up, 3 down, or with what you got still now?
Ryder and Smolzy for sure, 3 pitches each.
Okay.
Beatty might foul some stuff off.
Would you back him off the plate?
I'd have to.
Yeah.
And he probably, if I got to 2 strikes, I think I'd get him with the slider.
Would you? So but
Beatty still, he can still swing it a little bit.
Well, that's fun stuff, and I always love kind of looking back at your career. We could do this forever and tell stories, but Springfield Cardinals tonight, you're in your official capacity now. You still don't know what you do. Where can people find you over there at Hammons Field this week?
Yeah, we're going to be there all week through Sunday.
You'll be on the TV.
Come out.
As Ned would say, the TV. I'm talking like him now.
The box.
Saturday and Sunday. But during the week, do you kind of roam? If people want to see you out in the stands, are you out there?
Yep, I'm out there. And then tune in to me and Ned Saturday and Sunday.
Absolutely. Scott, always appreciate it. We'll do it again, and thanks for your time. Time to wrap things up with Scott's thoughts, my ramblings and musings about the world of sports, local, regional, national, kind of some thoughts on what's happened in the past few days. And I start with the more than 18.7 million to be exact, TV viewers for the Iowa South Carolina National Championship women's basketball game on Sunday afternoon, a record for women's basketball, the highest rated basketball game watched in the last 5 years, and it was worth every second of it. South Carolina, the better team, they finished off the 38-0 season. We got to see the end of the Caitlin Clark era with her 30-point effort in the loss. Just amazing what she's done for the women's game. $1,000 tickets. People waiting in line trying to get in to see her games, the viewership on TV, just across the board. She's turned fans that maybe didn't watch women's basketball into women's basketball fans when she played. Of course, the thing now to watch is, was it a Caitlin Clark thing or is it here to stay? And we'll know more when we get back into next season. But she was a transcendent force, and congratulations on a great career to Caitlin Clark. All the excitement of the women's game, we didn't really have a whole lot of it in the men's final on Monday night. UConn wins the NCAA championship with a convincing 15-point win over Purdue. Men's tournament was kind of a little bit of a letdown, a little boring. I mean, you had 2 number 1 seeds in the final, as expected there. UConn wins their 6 games by an average of 22.8 points. Got it done and really kind of turned that game into a little bit of a snooze fest after that. So we'll see in today's game with the transfer portal. Very impressive for them to be able to win it back-to-back. Congratulations to UConn on the championship. Finally, big news. It hasn't been officially announced yet by the University of Arkansas, but it appears that John Calipari is going to be their next head coach. Of course, the longtime boss at Kentucky had taken that program to the NCAA tournament multiple times, won a national championship. Kind of out of the blue that Calipari appeared as a candidate because it looked like that Hunter Yurachek was going to strike out, and Arkansas fans were having a fit because Chris Beard turned him down from Mississippi State, and then or Ole Miss, and then Mississippi State's coaches in the running had Jerome Tang at K-State said no thanks. It was looking pretty bleak there, and then out of the blue Sunday night we get the John Calipari news. So if Coach Cal's down there, you got to kind of wonder what version you're getting of him. He's 65 years old. Kentucky he was wearing out his welcome there with all the early exits in the NCAA tournament, but it's a guy that can recruit on the highest of levels. Apparently, he's negotiated a very strong NIL program for basketball and recruiting at Arkansas, so stay tuned. Probably about as good a hire as Arkansas can make a splash with after losing Eric Musselman to USC. So we'll see what happens with the Coach Cal saga down in Fayetteville. Big thank you to our sponsor, Fast Break Sports. Of course, it's baseball season. Time to go get your supplies for sports cards, memorabilia. They've got it all at Fast Break Sports. They're Burger King there at South Campbell and Battlefield. And as always, I want to thank you for listening. We'll see you next week around the Ozarks Sports.